And welcome to another edition of In the Know right here on WJTV Plus. I'm Byron Brown. Tonight we are talking about severe weather and severe weather season. We love the change of season, but with that can come some bad weather with it. And joining me now is meteorologist Austin Powell with Storm Team 12. And Austin, great to have you back.
Thanks, Byron. Happy to be here.
You know, we love when spring break comes. Kids will be on spring break,
Right.
but we love the change of temperatures when
The
it warms up.
80s.
I know.
Oh, the 80s are nice.
It is great, but with that, there are also some dangers when the weather changes and it starts getting warmed up, and that means we got to be weather aware. Why is that?
Well, we're getting to the point where, that warm air from the Gulf is moving in. That's allowing for the 80s winds coming up out of the south, bringing that warm and moist air. But the cold air is not done just yet. We're still going to have some Arctic air trying to sneak into the southeast. And whenever you get these two air masses colliding, we think of like a fight. We got the cold air fighting against the warm air. And whenever you get that, a lot of the times, that can allow for the development of some severe weather. Now, there's more to it than just that, but we'll talk a little bit about that today, hopefully.
And so March is usually the beginning of when things start to really change for us. I mean, we always pray for, can't wait till spring gets here. But then with that comes some things we just got to be aware about.
Right. Beginning of March usually is whenever we start seeing the warmer temperatures, and that's exactly what we're seeing now. Typically goes through the mid-May, so around Mother's Day generally is when we consider our severe weather season. At least that's just a general rule of thumb. And this is our main severe weather season, too.
And that means when you talk about weather aware, that means we get more tornadoes can pop up.
Unfortunately, yes. This is the time of the year when the ingredients are going to be there for those tornadoes. We'll talk a little bit about just some basics here about the spring severe weather season. So generally, March through May, that's not a set guideline. We've had tornadoes in June and July before, but usually the bulk of the severe weather will be during this time because that's when those stronger cold fronts are still going to be trying to move in. But during this time, we've got the better ingredients needed. We're going to talk all about those ingredients today, but generally severe thunderstorms, strong gusty winds, hail, tornadoes, all of those are going to be likely during this time of the year. And tornado activity. You've talked about those tornadoes. That's what's on everybody's mind. Tornado activity does peak during this part of the year.
And when we talk about how severe are those tornadoes usually during this time of year?
So for us, typically not to say that we couldn't get the strongest EF5 tornado. I hope we don't. But, those are more rare. Typically here in the South, we'll get a squall line of thunderstorms moving through. And along that line is going to be embedded areas of rotation. So we could have multiple tornadoes, but generally speaking, they're not going to be as long-lived. But we've seen in the past before, like, last March, where we had supercell tornadoes move through the south central Mississippi and the Pine Belt. We had an EF4 tornado in Walthall County. The year anniversary of that, I believe, is coming up here pretty soon. But we can see, of course, the strongest tornadoes that Mississippi is going to see at any point in the year is going to be in our spring severe weather season.
And we tend to get hit with a lot of severe weather. It's thunderstorms and tornadoes in Mississippi. And why is that?
So we've got all the ingredients lining up, and we're going to talk about all of those, but it all goes back to we've got the fuel for those storms to develop. That warm and moist air from the Gulf moving in. We've got plenty of moisture from the Mississippi Gulf Coast moving in, warmer temperatures, and whenever that cold air combines with that, that's when we'll have those thunderstorms. So let's talk. You want to talk about those tornadoes. You can see here why this is our primary severe weather season, because this is our average tornadoes by month. So we'll get a few in January and February. We did have a few in February. One weekend we had 10 EF0 to EF1 tornadoes touch down. But March, it starts ramping up. April, that's when we really start seeing things get going. A few in May, and then it kind of calms down for the summer as that more warm air kind of just dominates the forecast. We're not talking about cold fronts generally moving through. If it is, it's just a slight cool down. It's not going to be enough to cause those thunderstorms. And then in the spring or the fall, that's our secondary severe weather season.
It seems odd that we have something like in November and December, that time of the year.
It does.
You would think things would be calm.
And just the South is one of the only places in the country where we're talking about multiple severe weather seasons, and we've just got those ingredients. So you want to talk about those? Byron, there's generally 4 different ingredients that we think about for severe weather to develop. The first is going to be wind shear. So that's the change in wind direction with height. Also change in wind speed with height. And you can imagine if you got changing direction and changing speed, that's how you get some of that rotation going on in the atmosphere. So that comes from the jet stream. So as the jet stream moves a little further down to the south, that gives us all of this a low pressure because we're going to have all this rising air. As air rises, that's what allows for these thunderstorms to develop. As air rises, it cools, it condenses, that gives us clouds, also precipitation with that. So whenever we get the jet stream moving a little further down to the south, that's when we'll get some of that stronger rotation because we're going to have more of that rising air, also changing wind speed and direction with height. So that gives us the rotation, but that combines with, we talked about those temperatures. So we're going to have this area of low pressure here. This is called a trough in the upper levels. So we've basically got all this air that needs to rise from the surface, results in low pressure at the surface, but then we got a cold front. Here's our cold front. So we got the Arctic air on the west side here, the warm, moist air on the east side. As that air, it collides, that's when we get a lifting mechanism. So a cold front, of course, it's going to bring in cold and dense air. So since cold air is denser, it's going to kind of go under this warm air, which causes more rising air. So that's what we're talking about here. As air rises, I said it condenses, and that allows for the development of these showers and thunderstorms. On top of that, we've got the moisture. Now, moisture, it's coming up from the Gulf, of course, and whenever you have more moisture, moist air is less dense than dry air, so it's going to rise even easier. And of course, it's got all this heat with it. So as air rises, it's also releasing latent heat. So that allows for some stronger thunderstorms to develop, and then combine that with instability. You know, Byron, we talk about in the spring a lot of the times how we don't want to see the sun, you know, and people are like, why? It's sunny, it's beautiful outside. But that's just adding more fuel to the fire, though, because if we have instability, that's going to make those parcels unstable. They're going to rise even easier. And the easier it is for air to rise, the stronger your storms are going to be. So generally, I know that was a lot, but we've got the wind shear, changing wind speed and direction with height. We've got the moisture, the warm, moist air from the Gulf moving in. We got the cold front causing more parcels to rise, and then the instability from daytime heating. That all of that goes together to give us the ingredients for severe thunderstorms.
And there we go. And then and we talk about, I think it's a Dixie Alley, that
Yes.
we are Dixie Alley, which means that we get a lot of storms in here. But oftentimes we think of tornadoes. You always think like Oklahoma is the worst, but really we are worse than Oklahoma.
In a certain sense, we are. But yes, Tornado Alley, you think of all these big tornadoes, these giant tornadoes that you can see for miles. Yes, Tornado Alley typically does get more tornadoes than we do here in the South, but they're deadlier here. Now, there's several factors that we think about that goes into this. One of the first things is most of our tornadoes, we get a lot of nocturnal events. It's not like, oh, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everyone's awake, and we have a tornado warning issued. A lot of the times, there's plenty of overnight events that we've had. A lot of those, so if it's nighttime, people are likely going to be asleep. They're not going to be as likely to hear the warnings if they're issued, and when those warnings are issued, a lot of people will sleep through them. So them being at night, that's a big reason that Dixie Alley is just as dangerous to be in as Tornado Alley is. But we've also got the landscape here is a little different. You know, if you go out here, you can see for miles. Like you can see the tornado 5 to 10 miles down the road probably. But here we've got trees, we've got elevation changes. You can't really see that far. So it could sneak up on you. And unfortunately, another factor, and this is really hard on Mississippi, is we have a lot of mobile homes. And that, all three of those and that goes for all of the South as well. Everything I said about Mississippi is true in all of Dixie Alley. But mobile homes, unfortunately, we do see a lot of tornado damage from mobile homes because it just doesn't take much. You know, we see, it doesn't have to be a tornado. We can have a 80-mile-per-hour wind gust go through and flip a mobile home. It just doesn't take much, unfortunately. So all of that.
Not enough stable structures, basically.
Right. And it's a double-edged sword because, yes, those mobile homes are affordable, but whenever these storms come through, it's just not the safest place to be. And that's why we always talk about, you know, knowing where you're going to go.
Yeah. And those nighttime storms, I mean, we do have a lot of nighttime storms. It seemed like, I think the last time you guys had severe weather was that that was just a couple of weeks ago.
1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
We've had overnight events go even earlier into the early morning hours. So yes, one of those ingredients we talked about was instability from the sun. But a lot of the times, these storm systems are going to be strong enough that it doesn't necessarily need all that heating from the sun. In fact, if those storms had come in even earlier, it would have likely been worse because those storms would have had that heating.
And so, what can viewers do because we have so many
Right.
these storms late at night or whatever? How do we, I know you guys are on the air all the time, but how do
Yes.
they get the alerts? How do they find out, or how do they know, or how do you
So
protect
the
themselves?
alerts, of course, the tornado warnings, they're going to come right to your smartphone. That's going to be anytime a tornado warning is issued, you're going to get an automatic one of those loud alerts on your phone. Those are always going to go out. Now, severe thunderstorm warnings, you might have to download. We recommend you download the Storm Team 12 app because it will notify you if a severe thunderstorm warning or any type of weather alert is issued for your area. Have multiple ways to receive those warnings. So don't plan on, oh, my phone, I'll get that alert. Yes, those alerts are really reliable, but of course something could happen where you don't get it. Or what if your phone is dead? Okay, that's where we talk about those weather radios. Those are one of the most reliable ways to get those warnings. Also, we talk about tornado sirens, and I know there's several here around the metro. I do believe there's still several here, but those a lot of people depend on those, but they are not reliable at all. They're meant as a last ditch resort to let people know who are working outside, hey, there's something going on. You need to take cover. So don't depend on tornado sirens, but have that smartphone charged and ready to go, and also download a couple of apps. Download our app, our Storm Team 12 app. We're going to recommend that. You can stream us on it as well. So if a tornado warning was issued and you're in your bathroom in the bathtub, you can stream us on that app. So we recommend that.
A lot of times you can't hear the sirens inside your home.
Right. Most of the time you can't, especially in these rural counties, which we've got a lot of them, who don't have a single tornado siren in them at all. But even here around Jackson, like unless you're just right in the city, outside, you're likely not to even hear it.
Right, and when we talk about those the weather apps and also the radio, the radios. I mean, how important is it to have those things? I guess probably near your bed at night.
Yes,
right?
So we always tell you to have your phone on as loud as it'll go. Have it sitting on the charger. Don't turn on Do Not Disturb. Don't have it on silent. Have it as loud as it'll go. Also, those weather radios, it wouldn't hurt to have that plugged in right by your bed if you have one of those as well.
And you talk about these worst options, bad options. Explain what that means here.
So the worst options, of course, that's going to be where we don't want you to be. There's several kind of misconceptions here, especially with the overpasses. We watch these movies, like I think of Twister,
exactly,
and they're like, they go get under the overpass.
Right.
And we're like, well, I can see why people would think that because, yes, it does provide you a cover. But in fact, what that overpass is doing, where it's funneling more of that air, that air has to flow somewhere because it's being blocked by that bridge there.
Sure.
So it's going to go under. So you're going to get an even stronger area of wind flow.
Like a vacuum almost.
Yeah, almost like that. And there's going to be the stronger winds are going to be under that bridge. So that's why instead of an overpass, I know it sounds bad, Byron, but if you're in a situation where you are out, you don't have anywhere to be, we don't want you in your vehicle either because it could toss that around just as easy. We tell people to get in the ditch and just put their head in the ditch and cover their head. I mean, of course, that's a worst case scenario. We don't want you to be there, but it's literally safer in a ditch than in a car or under that overpass.
Right, I got you. Okay, and then the bad option?
So the worst, mobile homes also bad as well. Of course, we've hit on that pretty good. Bad options, any large room that has a high ceiling. So like a gymnasium. I know a lot of the gyms now, they've kind of improved the building codes a little. So they're getting where the gyms are a little stronger, a little more able to resist some of this stuff. But still, anything that's like a prefabricated structure or a large open gym or open room, you don't need to be in there. We're always going to recommend go to the most interior room of your house. You're going to put the most walls in between you and the outdoors as possible. Get to the lowest level as well. So a lot of times that's going to be a basement, a hallway, a closet, the bathtub, just somewhere you don't want to be anywhere with windows. Storm shelters are the safest, but unfortunately there's not too many in central Mississippi, especially in these more rural counties.
A lot of people have one-story homes. So when you say interior place, give an example of an interior place.
That would be like the bathroom, underneath a stairwell, the hallway, somewhere like that. You don't want any windows, and you still do want the most walls in between you and the outdoors as possible, though.
And then talk about the difference between a watch and a warning.
Yes.
So explain what.
So a watch means what it sounds like. We're watching for the potential for tornado. So the ingredients are there. Now, we have a nice illustration here of that. Now, this may seem kind of whimsical or kiddish, but this is a good way to think about it. A cupcake watch. We have the ingredients needed to make the cupcake. So we
Right.
don't have a cupcake yet. All the ingredients are still sitting on the counter. But a cupcake warning means you have a cupcake right in front of you right now. That's the same thing with a tornado watch and a tornado warning. Tornado watch means we've got the ingredients in place and the conditions are going to be favorable for a tornado to develop. So a tornado watch, that just means you need to be, as it sounds, watching for that potential. But a tornado warning, it's happening now. You need to take action. It's either a tornado has been indicated by radar, so we're seeing the velocity couplet where we've got winds going towards and away from the radar. That's an indication. That's a radar indicated tornado. Sometimes we'll see radar confirmed tornadoes where the radar is picking up on debris being lofted into the atmosphere. And then sometimes even we'll have spotters see or report that there's a tornado on the ground. So either three of those situations, if you're under a tornado warning, we're always going to tell you to take it seriously and go to your safe place and just start tuning into us. Just if you get a tornado warning, turn it immediately on channel 12. We're going to be on TV anytime a tornado warning is issued.
And that means there's something happening right around your community.
Yes, there's something. If you get that warning, the Weather Service issues these county by county. So they're not going to, the tornado warnings are usually really small. Sometimes they only include portions of one county, but at most it's probably going to clip portions of 3 or 4 counties. So it's like, it's not a large area at all. There's a reason that warning has been issued, and it's usually, there's got to be some good indication that there's rotation, whether it's possibly reaching the ground, and then, of course, sometimes they are confirmed.
And these tornadoes move pretty fast. I mean, they hit the ground,
They do.
they're in and out, basically.
They do. So the last week or a couple of weeks ago, we were talking 55, some of them 65 miles an hour off to the north and east. The tracks were so short. Like in these tornadoes, it doesn't take much down here where they can touch down really fast and then just be on the ground for a couple of minutes, and then that's the end of it. But you don't. But just because they lift, that doesn't mean they're over with. They can still recycle, come back down to the ground, and then lift back up again. So that's why a tornado warning, you just need to be taking it seriously and get to that. Minutes do matter.
Right.
I mean, seconds matter whenever it comes to a tornado, but it's just, we always tell you take it seriously and just.
And those few minutes on the ground, the amount of damage they can do, it's just incredible.
They can. And it's like a tornado, depends on the path width of it and how long it's on the ground, but a tornado, you may look a couple of miles down the road and nothing happens, but then the tornado went right through your backyard and you're going to be able to see the damage real easily. You're going to know a tornado has gone through, but it's just, you don't want to take a chance with these.
Right.
They're dangerous, not just to property, but more importantly, tornado fatalities are a thing. Unfortunately, we see it. Thankfully, lately, over the past several years, it does seem like we've seen some decrease.
Right.
More ways to receive those warnings. Maybe people are more aware. There's been plenty of research done on that. But that's our main job as meteorologists, though. It's, yeah, we want to tell you about the good weather and how it's going to be 80 and sunny today. But ultimately, Storm Team 12 is here to keep you safe. And that's why we break into programming. We may break into the Oscars or the basketball game, but it's for good reason. We're not just going to break in just to break in.
People aren't happy about that.
They're not.
Because
they're not.
It's not in their community, but we
Right.
know it's affecting some
But
community.
yeah, that's what you got to think. It's if just because it's not affecting you, there's likely some community that could be devastated by that what's on the ground. So we're always going to break in for a tornado warning.
Yeah, and this month is when it all begins, so we got to be weather aware starting now.
Yep. Be weather aware now, have multiple ways to receive those warnings, have a plan, know where you're going to go, what you're going to do, prepare now, because as we move through the next several months, Byron, like you said, it's just, we're about to see some of these storms moving in that could have the potential to produce these tornadoes.
Good information. We always thank you for giving us and informing us and educating us about severe weather and what's going on.
Thanks, Byron.
All right, Storm Team 12's Austin Powell. Great for us joining us today, and also we appreciate all the information. So be weather aware as we head into severe weather season between now, this is March, through May.
Right.
All right.
Right.
And you can catch another edition of In the Know every Tuesdays and Thursday right here on WJTV+. We thank you for joining us. Until next time, make it a good night, everyone.